Hello friends, for today's video I'm going to be going through my August anticipated fantasy releases. There are 2 books projected to be released on the 15th, 3 projected for the 22nd, and then also 3 more projected for the 29th. I'll have all the information I go through in the description bar down below in case you'd like to reference back to these projected release dates or if you'd like to look into any of these books further. I'm going to start with the one that I might be the most excited for, and that would be Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. I have fallen in love with T. Kingfisher as an author, and I have all of you to thank for that, so thank you, because you're the ones that recommended her works to me. The interesting thing is that she writes so different from book to book, and she writes a wide range of genres as well. And my favorite one that I've picked up has been Nettle and Bone, which is more of a grim fairy tale, and I think that we're going to be seeing something similar with Thornhedge, and also just from the synopsis alone, I think it's going to have her signature humor as well. So the synopsis, getting to that, it says, Thornhedge is the tale of a kind-hearted, toad-shaped heroine, a gentle knight, and a mission gone completely sideways. There's a princess trapped in a tower. This isn't her story. Meet Toadling. On the day of her birth, she was stolen from her family by the fairies, but she grew up safe and loved in the warm waters of fairyland. Once an adult, though, the Fae ask a favor of return to the human world and offer a blessing of protection to a newborn child. Simple, right? But nothing with fairies is ever simple. Centuries later, a knight approaches a towering wall of brambles where the thorns are as thick as your arm and as sharp as swords. He's heard there's a curse here that needs breaking, but it's a curse Toadling will do anything to uphold. And then there's a quote by Catherine Addison, who is the author of The Goblin Emperor, which was one of my favorite books that I picked up last year, and I love that book in general. And her quote says, "The way Thornhedge turns all the fairy tales inside out is a sharp-edged delight." So even if there wasn't that quote, and even if I didn't know about the synopsis, I would be excited, but it also just sounds fantastic. I think it's going to have her signature humor. I think it's going to have that grim fairy tale feeling. Maybe a little less grim than Nettle and Bone, but I guess I don't know, because I don't know what the deal is and why Toadling seems to want to uphold this particular thing. So anyway, I'm very excited for Thornhedge. Can't wait. After that, we have Labyrinth Heart. I can't say too much about this book specifically because it is the 3rd in a series. So I'll mention a little bit about the first one. This story follows a con woman who is trying to con her way into a house, a very wealthy house that she thinks will grant her wealth if she can pull off this con. However, unknown to her, the house is actually facing financial ruin, and they've been trying to keep this a secret because as soon as the other houses discover that they are hurting, then they will all start to circle like vultures. And so they're doing everything they can to keep everyone away, which is making the con much more difficult. And then on top of all of that, there is a vigilante figure that is going around this city, and it's very Venetian inspired. And then there's another character that seems very involved with the criminal underworld. There's different kinds of magic that is dependent on class to some degree. Not dependent on, but you see it more prevalent in certain areas than others, and it's really cool to see the different kinds of magic. The first one I really liked. I loved the setting. It's very fantasy heavy with its names, and the magic systems being the fact that there's multiple ones makes it a little intense to get into, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the characters. I liked the dynamics. So I was really, really invested in that first one. Most people have enjoyed the second one more than the first, and my friends all kind of felt that way, that they really feel like everything was improved upon in the second one. But for me, I actually felt like the second one kind of was not what I was hoping for, because the first one, it took so long to kind of feel like you had your feet firmly planted on the ground. I was hoping to go into the second one feeling like, okay, now I'm back in this world, and then just going from there and getting even further connected to the characters and things like that. But it felt kind of episodic, where it almost felt like villain of the week. And I also found that sometimes the characters felt like they were a little bit different in their personalities from one chapter to the next. And I kind of just wanted it, it's not that I wanted it to be more streamlined, but I just found it wasn't what I was wanting, I suppose. Not at all saying that it's objectively worse than the first one or not as good or anything like that, but just it wasn't what I was anticipating. So I'm interested to see what probably other people think of the third one before I commit to picking it up. However, Still highly recommend the series. I definitely think it's underhyped, and so many people I think would really like it. One, because of the characters and the setting and those sorts of things, but also because it's very different from a lot of other fantasy books that are popular right now. And I know sometimes the thing that can kind of burn people out in fantasy is they feel like they're picking up the same thing over and over again, and this one will definitely be unique. So I definitely recommend it. I just don't know if I'm gonna immediately jump into that third one. After that, we have the books that are projected for the 22nd. First up, we have The Water Outlaws. It starts by saying that's inspired by classics of martial arts literature, which already makes me really excited, but the synopsis itself sounds very good. We follow a character named Lin Chong, who is an expert arms instructor who believes in keeping her head down and doing her job until a powerful man with a vendetta rips that carefully built life away. Disgraced, tattooed as a criminal, and on the run from an imperial marshal who will stop at nothing to see her dead, she is recruited by a group of bandits. It says they are mountain outlaws on the margins of society who proclaim a belief in justice for the downtrodden. They're also murderers, thieves, smugglers, and cutthroats. Apart, they love like demons and fight like tigers. Together, they could bring down an empire. That synopsis sounds so good, and I always love the kind of underdog story, that character that just wants to live life and go about their business, but then something gets in the way of that. I love those kinds of characters. So I'm very excited. I also I don't know the projection of the plot, but I always love when there's a character that you just root for and you want so badly for them to take this other person down. You're like, come on. So I'm really excited for that one. I really hope that it's everything I'm hoping for. The next two are both sequels. We have He Who Drowned the World, which is the sequel to She Who Became the Sun. This one is kind of it's taking historical fiction and fantasy and it's blending it together, so it's almost like alternate history. The fantasy elements are quite minimal, but I still really enjoyed it despite how little fantasy elements there were. I also really like historical fiction though, so for me it really worked. And I really liked diving into just how awful these characters are and what people will do in pursuit of power. I think it made for a very compelling read, even though it's kind of the opposite of what I was saying about the Water Outlaws. I'm not really rooting for anybody. I'm just kind of watching everybody be awful in the name of gaining power. And the sequel, I have been waiting for a while. And I believe it's just going to be this duology, so the sequel will be the end of the story. And then after that, The Midnight Kingdom. This is one where I don't know how I'll feel about this one. The first one took quite a while for me to really get invested in, and the pacing was a little bit up and down. The parts that were exciting were really exciting, and there's so much to the city and the magic. There's different kinds of magic depending on what part of the city you're following and which family you're looking at. And you have all these different people that are kind of potentially vying for the throne. Some of them want power more than others. Some of them are friends, and at times they're sort of pitted against each other. And so it took a lot to really get all the intricacies of this world under your belt. So I'm curious to see in the second one, are we just going to take off from there? The ending was really explosive of the first one, so we'll see. I'm not really sure, but I'm hoping that it just builds upon what was established in book one. Now getting to the books that are projected to be released on the 29th. The first one we have would be The Phoenix King. The synopsis from this one says, from a stunning new voice in fantasy comes an Indian-inspired, action-packed debut of fire magic and ancient prophecy in which the fate of a kingdom rests in the hands of a princess desperate for power and an assassin with a dark secret. I think that sort of mini synopsis is everything I want to know about the series. I think it sounds absolutely fantastic. It's also from Orbit, and I tend to be a pretty big fan of a lot of things that Orbit puts out. And even if it's something that doesn't work for me, it's still enjoyable. There's still elements that I like, or there are things that I can see a lot of other people really enjoying. So I think Orbit does a great job of picking good fantasy. After that, we have Her Radiant Curse. This is not a sequel, but it is part of Elizabeth Lim's shared universe. So if you don't know, the Blood of Stars duology, it has a reference to the character that is in the Six Crimson Cranes duology. And that character has a relationship with someone, and now this new book is looking at that character that she has a relationship with. It's a family figure, you could say. Now we're looking at that character in this new book. So I actually don't want to say too much about that character because within Six Crimson Cranes, it's of course Shiori's story, but you're also looking at some of the backstory of this individual that she knows, and it's sort of a mystery in the story, and even how the character, I don't want to say too much, but I'll just kind of leave it at the fact that we're now looking at that character, and that character's backstory was really interesting, and it would seem going to go deeper into that character's backstory. So apologies that I don't want to say too much more, but it's one of those things where I won't know until I read it if it is going to reveal aspects of what you get in the other ones or not. It's just tough. It's like talking about Second Era Mistborn, where you're like, how much can I say? So Her Radiant Curse, I'm very excited for, and I have enjoyed everything I've read by Elizabeth Lim, so I'm excited for this one. Last, we have Zara, and tell me that this opening does not immediately, not the opening of the book, but the opening of the synopsis, tell me that this doesn't already pique your interest. It says, Sailor Moon meets Cinder. I'm already like, you said Sailor Moon. So anyway, I'll read the full synopsis. So it says, Sailor Moon meets Cinder in Guardians of the Dawn, Zara, the start of a new, richly imagined fantasy series. And then the full synopsis says, magic flickers, love flames, chaos reigns. Magic is forbidden throughout the Morning Realms. Magicians are called abominations and blamed for the plague of monsters that razed the land 20 years before. Jin Zara already had enough to worry about, appease her stepmother's cruel whims, looking after her blind younger sister, and keeping her own magical gifts under control, without having to deal with rumors of monsters re-emerging in the marsh. But when a chance encounter with an easily flustered young man named Han brings her into contact with a secret magical liberation organization called the Guardians of Dawn, Zara realizes there may be more to these rumors than she thought. A mysterious plague is corrupting the magicians of Zanhei and transforming them into monsters, and the Guardians of Dawn believe a demon is responsible. In order to restore harmony and bring peace to the world, Zara must discover the elemental warrior within, lest the balance between order and chaos is lost forever. So I'm so excited for this one. I think it sounds like so much fun. And the full name, it would seem, is Guardians of Dawn, and then a colon, Zara. So it makes me wonder if the Sailor Moon reference is that maybe we're going to get more Guardians of the Dawn books, and they're maybe going to introduce new characters, and each of those characters is almost like a different sailor. And I'm wondering, part of my thinking with that is also tied to the fact that it was compared to Cinder, because if you've read that series by Marissa Meyer, you do see characters from each previous book show up in the newest book, but it kind of follows different characters each time, and then there's this big overarching plot and enemy that they're all kind of, that's what's bonding them all together. So I wonder if that's kind of going to be what we get. Either way, I'm really excited. It sounds like it's going to be really fun, and I'm all for that. But anyway, that's it for some anticipated releases for the month of August. Definitely let me know what are some things you're looking forward to this upcoming month. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.